Hello, dear students. Welcome to this session. In the previous session, we have solved one problem from the previous question paper, where the precedence relationship among the different activities were given in a different method. So that is, in this fashion, the constraint or the precedence relationship among the activities A to I has been given, and based on that, we drawn the network diagram and found earliest start, latest start, latest finish, all those things. And finally, we have calculated the total float and free float. But in this problem, it was also asked to find out the independent float and interference float. So let us calculate those two floats. And before calculating independent and interference floats, let us be familiar with what exactly is the floats means. Here I have given the definition for the float. Just see here. The total float, it is the difference between the maximum time available to perform an activity and the activity duration. So it means it is a relaxation or it is a tolerance given for any activity to perform. The difference between maximum time available and performing activity or the activity duration means, suppose if an activity is allotted with 15 minutes of time, and if the available time is 30 minutes, then that activity will have a 15 minutes extra time, so which we call it as a total float. Then the second float is free float. It is that portion of the total float within which an activity can be manipulated without affecting the floats of the subsequent activities. It means, suppose if an activity is already started on a particular time and is allotted 15 minutes of time for performance, even if it is delayed to finish its activity or if it takes extra time to finish, then also the floats of subsequent or the succeeding activities will not be get affected. So that portion of total float time is called as a free float. Once again I say, suppose if an activity started on 0th time and it took 15 minutes to perform and it will be completed on 15 minutes. Suppose if it takes 5 minutes extra, means if it completes on 20th minute, then also the floats or the extra portion of the time available for the succeeding activities will not be get affected. So that portion of the time is called as, that portion of the float is called as the free float. The next one is independent float. So it is that portion of that total float within which an activity can be delayed to start without affecting the floats of preceding activities. Suppose if there are two activities A and B, A started on 0th period and taken 15 minutes to perform and it will be completed on 15 minutes. And the B activity has to start on 15th minute. But suppose if it takes more than 5 minutes to start, if it starts on 20th minute instead of 15 minutes, then also there will not be any effect on the floats of the previous activities. It will not consume the floats of the previous activity, but it has got its own float by taking which it can start with a delay. So that portion of total float is called as the independent float. And finally, the interference float. It is that portion of the total float which causes the reduction in the floats of succeeding activities. Or interference float refers to that portion of an activity float which cannot be consumed without adversely affecting the floats of the subsequent activities. Friends, please see the difference between previous three floats and this interference float. These three floats, total, free and independent floats, are the time available with them. But here in the interference float, It is the time which should not be consumed by the activity. Suppose if it consumes that portion of the total float, it will affect adversely on the floats of the subsequent activities. So these four can be calculated with the help of the earliest start and latest start, earliest finish and latest finish. The total float means we know that it is the difference between, it can be calculated by taking the difference between earliest start and latest start or earliest finish and latest finish. Whereas the free float, it is calculated by taking the difference between the total float and the slack of the head event of a particular activity. And this independent float is reversed to the free float. It is the independent float is the difference between the total free float and the slack of initial activity or tail activity, tail event. Once again, I repeat, independent float means it is the difference between free float and the slack of initial event or tail event. The interference float is calculated by taking the difference between total float and free float. So here I have calculated all these four floats. Total float already you have calculated in the previous session itself. That is the difference between latest start and earliest start or latest finish and earliest finish. Free float, it is the difference between total float and the head event slack. Here, the independent float. So independent float means it is the difference between free float and tail event slack. Let us see how it is calculated. For first one, free float of activity A is 0, 0. Free float minus tail event slack. Tail event slack is 0, 0 minus 0, 0. That is for activity A, just see here, activity A, the tail event is 1 and the slack means the difference between latest finish and earliest start. LF minus ES, that is 0, 0 minus 0, 0 is equal to 0, 0. So that we have taken here, 0, 0 minus 0, 0. And similarly for the B also, the 31 is the free float minus, as A, B and C, these three are the start activities. So all are having 0, 0 minus 0, 0. Suppose if you take, say for example, this one, let us take the G activity. The activity G has the free float 0, 0 minus this is tail event slack. The tail event of G is 39 and 25 as LF and ES respectively. 39 minus 20 is 19. This 19 has to be subtracted from the free float, that is 0, 0. 0, 0 minus 19 will give minus 19. And it has to be approximately considered as a 0, means there is no any tolerance at all. Minus means no tolerance. Strictly it has to consume whatever the, strictly it has to be finished on the, strictly it has to be started on the scheduled time. Then similarly you can see for this one, that is for the H. H is having 25 as a free float and the slack of the tail event for the H is, for H it is 57 minus 38. 57 minus 38 means 19. It's 19. 25 minus 19 will give 6. So it means 6 means the activity H can start by taking 6 minutes delay, which will not affect on the floats of the preceding activities or the previous activities. Then like that I have calculated the independent float. Interference float, as we know that it is the difference between total float and free float. Here it is a total float and it is a free float. free 0 minus 0 is equal to 0 like that. Here 19 minus 0 is 19, and 19 minus 0 is 19, and 25 minus 25 0. This means the interference float means this much amount of time it should not consume. Suppose if they consume the activity for C, activity C, if it consumes 19 minutes or the 19 days of the portion of total float, then there will be a delay in the, or it will consume the floats of the next activities. So this should not be consumed. These are the tolerances. For this, we can say these are the tolerances by taking which they can start or they can finish, or this is the total amount of time, extra time that particular activity is having. So please go through once again the definition, because in the question paper, in the theory part of this part and CPM, it may be asked to define the total float, free float, then independent float and interference floats. Okay, you just see here, and mathematically how they have calculated that we have seen in this table. That is total float means it is this, free float means total float minus third event slack, independent float means it is a reverse of that, that is free float minus tail event slack. Then interference float means the difference between total float and free float. Okay, and we'll continue with the part in the next session. Thank you.